Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a motion on cycling and HGV safety. Those of us who are transport leads in the Assembly for each of the groups will have had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails in the last few months asking ourselves and the Mayor to to take this seriously and support their action plan. And if I think back over the 15 years now since the Mayor and Assembly was first created, it was only June 2000, 1 month after the first election, when we had a tragic cycle death, sadly the first of many during our tenure here at City Hall. That first case under the new City Hall and Transport for London regime and new policing setup, I think it highlighted so much of what was wrong in terms of transport policy, in terms of policing and enforcement, in terms of the whole issue of how we deal with this. And tragically, 15 years later, cyclists are still dying on our roads. There have been a number of big improvements since then. We do have now, with the Metropolitan Police, a well-resourced road incident investigation team. The HGV enforcement unit was established. Transport for London and Crossrail have both made lorry safety for pedestrians and cyclists part of their conditions for using contractors and written into contracts. London, after various teething problems, London is finally starting to build really high quality segregated super highways, again with a lot of lobbying and a lot of campaigning, but we are getting there in the end. And I think there's also been a real positive shift in attitudes and understanding. When I first got involved in politics, cycling issues were a real political football, and it delights me in a way that whilst there are still big issues to challenge and big issues to tackle, it isn't quite the same political football as it once was, and I think that there does seem to be now far more of an understanding cross-party. I think that's been exemplified by the work of the Transport Committee under both Caroline's chairmanship and Val Shawcross's chairmanship. I think we've had some really good cross-party working on that, and we might still argue about how much money we need to spend and so on, but in terms of the overall objectives and the overall vision, I think there is now a much greater degree of consensus than there certainly was when City Hall was first set up. So the motion calls for some specifics, including a rush hour lorry ban subject to the completion of the full impact assessment by TfL, stronger across the board standards in safety for the construction industry, the rollout of Cyrus, which after initial reluctance, and a number of us kept hammering away on this, including myself, but after initial reluctance to have the Cyrus confidential instant reporting system applied not only to trains, which it has for years, but also to buses. Finally, the Mayor and TfL have agreed that we want to push them on now. Well done on the buses, but we should be seeing that type of regime for the whole HGV operation in London. I'm pleased with the discussions with the groups that we are building up a consensus on this, and I would be delighted if we could pass this motion unanimously today. Thank you.
Okay. Assembly Member Boff, seconding this motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to second this motion. It, apart from most of its common sense, has been alluded to by Darren. But I think it's very important that in this body we should support evidence-based policy making. And my instinct, has always been, whenever I've heard about these appalling accidents and fatalities that have taken place, to to just ban HGVs, you know, and that is everybody's instinct. But we've got to I think make our opinions come to conclusions based upon evidence, and so I'm indebted to the LCC, for example, the London Cycling Campaign, for providing the data that points to the fact that a large bulk of the fatalities and collisions take place during the rush hour. But the reason we want the impact assessment is it's very important to ensure that what we're doing is not just displacing those fatalities and collisions to another time during the day. And I hope that the impact assessment will be able to establish to the Mayor's satisfaction and to ours that actually a ban for those few hours during the rush hour is a sensible thing and would not impact business that greatly. So I'm very encouraged by this. I do believe there is a consensus developing, a political consensus developing about cycling, which is quite interesting really, because even amongst cyclists there's rarely a consensus. And for many, many years there has been, you know, two warring battles between the integrators and the separators and all the rest of it. And those battles themselves are slightly coming to a resolution. And the answer to that battle is we need a little bit of both where it works. So separate at junctions but integrate where the roads are safer and straighter. That's the kind of mixed economy of policies that we need in order to ensure that we keep Londoners safe in whatever way they choose to travel into work or go about their business. So I'm delighted to support and second this motion, and I would urge the whole Assembly to support it. Thank you.
Assembly Member Pigeon.
Thank you very much. Briefly, because we have 9 motions before us this afternoon. It is afternoon now. I'm really delighted this motion's on the table now, and it's great to see how cycling has moved on so much in the nearly 8 years that I've been on the Assembly, and how the Mayor has changed his view as well, and we've moved to segregation, and seeing the fantastic new cycle superhighways being installed. Painful as they are, but when they are being installed, I've already started to get some fantastic feedback from cyclists saying what a difference this is making, and I really think that the next step is the recommendations within this motion. And if we want London to be a truly cycling city, then we have constantly got to be making these changes, looking at the things like the rush hour ban to make sure that our roads are as safe as possible for cyclists and ultimately for all road users. So we're delighted to support this today.
Thank you. Assembly Member Johnson.
I don't need to. No one's disagreed with anything, so I don't want to break the consensus now and risk upsetting that.
Okay. Can I see those in favour of the motion? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you very much.